All right, it's noon. Should we do this? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the off-campus webinar. Today is June 29th, 2017, and we are coming to you live from Denver, Colorado. It's a sunny day today, a little bit breezy. I'm in the office here with Linda. She is our manager of communications, and she will be taking questions through the chat box as we go through. I do have a lot of questions that came in as people registered, so that's how I'm going to organize this webinar. We'll kind of go through those. We've got some different categories and different sections of what we're going to go over. To start, I'm kind of just going to give a overview of the Denver housing market in general. We are currently in the midst of a housing boom in Denver. Since about 2011, we've seen prices increase and inventories decrease. Right now, it is the highest percentage of renters since the 1960s in the Denver metro area. So that's kind of what we're working with. Right now, the market definitely favors property management companies and landlords because of the demand. They're able to kind of work within the system of making sure that they are kind of getting what they need out of these leases. So at the University of Denver here, that's where we're trying to make some headway in, first of all, making sure that we properly educate our students on what to expect when they're signing a lease, as well as what they can expect and see as they go through their living situation and complete the contract. More than 50% of the people in the Denver metro area right now are renting, which is a pretty interesting statistic, and so that has been increasing since 2011. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now and kind of go through the main content of the webinar. So kind of an overview of what we're doing here at the University of Denver. This past year, we had our first housing fair. We had 17 property management companies come, and it was held on the Driscoll Bridge, which is kind of a main thoroughfare through the university. It was in February, and the property management companies were very happy as they were able to connect with possible tenants, and students were very happy, and staff and faculty as well, because they were able to talk to some leasing agents and start the process. We received 126 survey responses from attendees, so given a low response rate, we estimated there was over 1,000 students, faculty, and staff who walked across the bridge in those 4 hours. So I'm the off-campus housing fellow for this academic year, and I've been meeting with different academic units on campus: College of Education, Daniels College of Business, Sturm Law College, Corbell School of International Affairs, to see what they're doing to help students with off-campus housing. Typically, this is done with admissions representatives and admissions counselors and directors who are talking to students about, this is what's going to happen when you make the move to Denver. If you're coming from out of state or out of country, this is kind of what you can expect, and this is where we can help you. So this is a very intentional move on the university's part, and kind of what my office does is we talk with students every single day. I have students and parents calling me, and they want to talk about, where can I live? How much is it going to be? What's the transportation like? How do I find these places? These are questions I get every day. Another cool thing that we've been doing is we made a partnership with Colorado Affordable Legal Services right next to the Capitol downtown, and they are the only law firm in Denver that specifically represents tenants against landlords. And so we're working with them. We're going to have some workshops this upcoming fall around the homecoming weekend, where they're going to give a presentation workshop on how one, kind of tenants' rights, as well as how fair housing in Denver works. Kind of the biggest thing that we have going right now is we're going to have a new platform for the off-campus housing services. That's going to be rolling out the second week of July. And what it's going to be is it's going to be an integrated platform within the University of Denver website where students, faculty, and staff can all securely log in with their student ID, their H7 number, and they can look at available properties. They can look at where they are on a map. They can have direct contacts with the leasing agents at those properties. And the other cool part is there's going to be a roommate matching, not roommate matching, excuse me, a roommate forum where you can kind of post a profile of yourself and kind of what you're looking for in a roommate. And then that will allow other students to view those, send messages, and find roommates that way. Kind of the last thing we've been doing is our office has been writing a housing guide for international students. It's a very difficult process coming from outside of the country and understanding the landscape of Denver, which is something I kind of hope to address in this webinar, and kind of explaining, what's the Denver metro area look like? How do I get around? What do I do if I want to go downtown, or if I want to go to the mountains or Golden to go hiking? Or how do I get out to my internship that's in Aurora? Is that possible with or without a car? So that's kind of what we've been doing. There's been a lot of progress this academic year. It's very exciting, and we're looking forward to more progress in the future. So to kind of start, we collected all of these questions as people were registering, and I went through and sorted them and was able to kind of group them into different areas. So we're going to start with methodology, which is how do I find a place? Right now, the best way to find housing, if you're in Denver, the best way to do it is just walk around the neighborhood you want to live in and see where the signs are and call those people directly. Because then you can kind of get a feeling of what the vibes are in that neighborhood, what's around there. Are there restaurants? Are there parks? How does it feel to be walking around this neighborhood? But a lot of people don't have that option if they live out of state or they're in another country at this point. So, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this new platform to allow students to do this, because currently there's Craigslist. The Craigslist is a very good resource for finding houses. It's kind of Craigslist, Zillow, and Trulia.com are kind of the main online housing platforms or search engines, databases where most of the property management companies are posting. So the first suggestion is to search those places in order to see, because you can filter by price, you can filter by number of bedrooms, you can filter by location, you can filter by security aspects that the apartment community has advertised. In terms of for the second question here, it's hard to say this company is not a good company to rent from, because when you look online, the reviews are going to be, people don't oftentimes post positive reviews of places. They only post negative things. And so, we have a good working relationship with a lot of the property management companies in the neighborhood and in the general Metro Denver area. And so we are constantly kind of putting people in communication with these different companies based on, location or price, or if they've worked with this company in the past. So I would say, there's no real necessarily bad experiences. It's just kind of an individual basis of, what are you expecting? How high are your expectations of this place? Are you expecting to live in a penthouse, with a mountain view and updated everything? Or is it going to be a studio apartment 2 blocks away from campus? This is a pretty interesting question right here. What are some of the most important aspects I should consider when looking for off-campus housing? So budget is probably the first thing that you need to consider when you're looking for a place. Do I have money saved up? Am I going to be living off of financial aid? Do I have any sources of income that are going to help me pay for this? And so it's important to kind of start with, okay, what's my rent? Does it include utilities? Does it include water, trash, heat? Are these all additional expenses that I'm going to need to pay for? Or do those come with the place? Also, internet, cable, do I want those things? Are those something that I need? A lot of students kind of think, oh, I don't need those things because I have the university. and I can go to the library and use the computers, or I can go to Daniel's School of Business and log on there. But then they kind of realize, it would be nice to have internet at my house as well. So depending on what package you use, there's multiple different types of companies, Comcast and DirecTV, or no, CenturyLink is the other one. Those are kind of the two main cable and internet companies here. And this last question was very telling of kind of the current climate of where we're at. So a student asked, my prospective and roommate and I have given the deposit to the manager. Will it guarantee we live there? And the answer to that is likely no. Until you actually sign the lease and sign that contract, the security deposit only kind of holds the application. So until you meet with them and sign the document, there's nothing guaranteed. Right now, places are going within 1 to 2 days. So you would go look at a place, you would make the appointment, you would call the place and say, okay, I'm going to come at this time, I want to take a look at it. And what we've been seeing, what I've been seeing, what everyone in our office has been seeing is that these places are going within 1 to 2 days. So as a prospective student, if you're kind of not ready to submit an application to that place, it's important to understand that there's probably 5 or 6 other people, professionals and students and families, that will also put that in. So once you kind of start getting ready to start the process of finding a new place to live, understand that given our current market in Denver for housing, these places are going extremely fast. So be prepared for that. You might not get the first place you want, might not get the second place you want, but the good thing is because the Metro Denver area is so large that we are able to kind of help students find places in a lot of different areas, because Denver has such a good public transportation system with the bus and with the trains that are all going around, which we'll get to when we're talking about location. But basically, when you're looking for a place, so kind of to recap this one, when you're looking for this, you need to understand, kind of have an area of where you want to live and narrow that down, and also within that price range. That's a good place to start. Then you can make the inquiry to the property management company and ask if the unit's still available. Can I come see it? After that, they can show you the place, explain what's included, what's not included. And from there, you would submit an application. Typically, there is an application fee ranging from $30 to $50 from what I've seen, which is non-refundable. So be prepared for that as well. And then after that, they'll likely run a background check in order to view what comes up with that, as well as a credit check likely as well. So moving on, kind of location, there's a lot of different areas in Denver where students live. So I'm going to pull up this map of Denver right here. So you can see the little blue dot right here. This is us at the university. Whoops. Okay, so we're located right along the highway here. This is Highway I-25. It runs north to south from Fort Collins all the way down to Pueblo. So we're in a pretty good section right here of town. If you kind of look at this, this is the greater Metro Denver area. We have students who live in Lakewood. We have students who live in Arvada, Aurora, Littleton, and Centennial. These are all areas that are accessible to get to the University of Denver, because there is a train that runs all the way along I-25 here. Those are the E, F, and H lines on the light rail. So that connects Centennial and Highlands Ranch to downtown Denver here. And there is a stop at the University of Denver. We also have a train that comes from Littleton here, the C and the D, where you would transfer at Broadway to come to here. So while we do have a lot of students who live within walking distance, biking distance, we do have a lot of students who commute. I know people who, if we kind of scroll out a little bit farther, I know people who commute from Greeley who work here. I know people who commute from Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Boulder. So because it's a Metro Denver school, the access is a lot larger. So one thing to consider as you're moving here, is, do I want to bring a car? Is this something where I think I would need it or drive every day? I personally, I have a car, but I don't use it very often because I ride my bike to work, to meetings, to meet people. Denver's a very bike friendly town. We have bike share rentals, but it is good to, if you're going to be looking at that, to consider, how am I going to get around in Denver? We have a train that comes here along I-225 that connects Aurora to DU. And these are all, it's very interesting because these are all coming within the last probably 4 or 5 years. Even more recently, we have a train that comes along 6th Avenue here to Golden. So now Golden is connected to Denver as well. And in the coming months, there's going to be trains that are going up to the north in Arvada and Westminster as well. So in terms of location, where a lot of our students live, as I kind of scroll back in here, this area around here, University, when people are talking about where you live, they say, oh, I live by DU, or I live in Platt Park, or I live in Wash Park. I know people who live in all of these different areas and they like where they live. It's all about setting your expectations of, what am I going to be doing when I get here? Am I going to be driving? If so, I need to budget gas. I need to budget parking. It costs money to park at the university, and there's not that much parking around. So you would need to get a parking permit, which, depending on the lot, can range from $300 to $400 a year. So that's another thing to include in your budget. A lot of students live kind of up in the Highlands area up here, which is on the other side of I-25. Students live in Lakewood. So while we do see clusters of students, particularly around the university, obviously, because ideally it's students want to live where they can walk to campus for ease and for budgetary purposes, but this isn't always a realistic option because places that are closer to the University of Denver are going to be more expensive. As you get farther away from here, places become more affordable. One thing to consider is that given where the University of Denver is in location to the rest of Denver, so here's the tech center. This is the Denver Tech Center. A lot of people work there. Here's downtown Denver, where there's banks and accounting firms and oil companies and kind of the main commerce area of the city. The University of Denver is located right in the middle of that. And so what we're seeing is, this is not an area like Boulder where it's heavily dominated by students and the preferences are given to students through leasing agents and leasing offices. Students around the University of Denver are competing with professionals, families, in order to find these places, because these people, they can take the train right downtown, easy access. They're right in downtown Denver. This is where they can go see Rockies games or Nuggets games or Avalanche games, or go to restaurants. There's lots of places around here where they can do that. That's kind of the main hub of Denver, if you will. So location, when we're talking about location, I feel like Denver is fortunate, and it's good that they made these investments in public transportation, because that really opens up options. 5-10 years ago, it was very heavily focused on the commuter and driving, but Denver has made these investments to make it easier for students and professionals and faculty and staff alike to kind of cut down and make it cheaper and more effective for them to get to campus. So prices. A lot of students have concerns about affordability, and this is something that kind of dominates the discussions we have within the housing office. Well, what is the role of the university in kind of mitigating these prices? We figure that into financial aid, cost of attendance worksheets, right? So if a student is living off of financial aid, they take the market average for a monthly room and board, and they include that for students to live off of. But if the room and board within the cost of attendance is $1,200 per month, and an apartment is $1,000 a month, that doesn't leave very much for that. So these are the kind of conversations I have with students. what's your budget? What are you looking at? Have you included food? Have you included utilities? Have you included possible expenses that may come up later? You know, we need to understand this in order to make the most economic and efficient decision when it comes to housing, because this is going to be a place you're going to live for a year, maybe more. So kind of what we're looking at for the prices, around the University of Denver, studio apartments on the low end are starting at about $800 and going up from there, depending on if it has an updated kitchen, updated floors, maybe wood floor, new carpet. For one bedrooms, we're looking at about $950 starting there at the low end. And again, this is going up. You know, there's places around the University of Denver that are $1,400 for a one bedroom apartment. That's what we're seeing here as more and more people are moving to Denver. So it's what I'm kind of trying to do here is kind of just set the expectation that Denver is a very competitive market. Prices are very high right now, and we're doing our best to kind of inform students of what to expect so that when they get here and they're looking for that, those kind of mesh a little bit better. It is obviously cheaper to live with roommates. We see, so if a one bedroom starts at $950 and goes up from there, two bedrooms start at about $1,100 or $1,200. So you're looking at $600 per person for those places. So whether that's an apartment, a townhouse, a condo, or a full single family home, these are kind of what we're looking at for prices. We have one here. We have this question here. What is the average cost of a 3-bedroom near campus? So around campus, if we're defining near within walking distance, which would be a 10 to 15 minute walk, so about a mile, maybe a little less than that as walking distance, we're seeing the average 2-bedroom being between $1,800 and $2,000. And so that could be split between 3 students, that could be split between 2 with an extra room in there. I have seen that before. But we are seeing higher than average prices compared to the rest of Denver. So if we go back to this map here real quick, here we are right here. This is kind of a more expensive part of town because of the university and because of the professionals who are commuting downtown and to the Denver Tech Center. As you go west towards Lakewood and east towards Aurora, south towards Inglewood and Littleton, north towards Wheat Ridge, this is where prices start to decrease. You can find much more affordable housing around these areas and still be able to take the light rail. So kind of as long as you're within one of these main highways, I-25, 6th Avenue, 225, and going south down here, Santa Fe, you're going to have pretty easy access with the trains. We do have a very good bus system as well. We have the 21 bus that runs all the way along Evans and as it turns into Iliff, so that connects east and west as well. And then along University here, going north to south, we have the 24 bus. So there are 2 bus lines that I know of right off the top of my head because I've ridden them that connect the university to different parts of Denver. Capitol Hill is where a lot of kind of younger people live. We have students who live there. For a 1-bedroom, you're looking at about $1,100, so a little bit more expensive still. Glendale right here is a part of town that has also cheaper rents and has easy driving access, or I believe the bus that goes down Colorado Boulevard is the 34. So that also has good where you could just make one connection to Evans. So prices right now, we're just kind of trying to mitigate that the best we can by just letting students know up front, you know, this is going to be a more cost intensive place to live. I know I had conversations with people in the Korbel School of International Studies, and it used to be that Denver was more appealing than Washington, D.C. for international affairs because of the cost of living in Denver. After 2011, things have changed, and it's not necessarily the same type of environment that we're seeing where people are coming here because it's cheap. People are coming here because they have jobs, because they want to live in Colorado, and because they want to come to school here as well. So With prices, I would just say expect to pay a little bit more than average around the university. And as you get farther away, it does become more affordable with easier access to the university through public transportation. So length and timing are some other questions that we got. A lot of students have, a lot of juniors study abroad in their first semester or their first quarter here at the University of Denver. So we field a lot of questions about how do I find an apartment if I'm living in London or Lisbon or Australia or Morocco? What am I supposed to do from that time when, because it's a very stressful situation when you don't know where you're going to live. So what we advise is to start thinking about where you're going to live when you come back in December or January before you leave for study abroad. So that involves talking to friends about where you want to live, who you want to live with, having multiple options as well. You know, don't kind of think in a tunnel type vision scenario where it's like, okay, I have this one person I want to live with and we have this one area where we want to live with, because that very much narrows the options of what you're going to be able to do. I would have kind of these places lined up and contacting places before you leave for study abroad, because once you get back, everyone else is getting back at that same time and trying to find the housing for this. It is interesting because it's not a student-focused housing market. Property management companies and landlords are creating leases to sign and start at the beginning of most months. So one discrepancy that we see is the academic year is 9 months, September to June, but housing, property management companies and landlords write 12-month leases. So this is an area where it doesn't quite match up, and it can make it difficult to find these places within that time frame, knowing, you know, maybe I'm going to be leaving for the summer and won't be here. So how am I going to do that? And so what landlords do is they write this language into these contracts with high fees for subletting or for breaking the lease, because they know that there's students who are living in there and they're likely not going to be there for the whole year. So they write that in order to make it so that they can have these kind of opt-out fees that are extremely high. So that's where it comes into play of kind of understanding the lease and reading the lease and saying, okay, it goes from June 1st to May 31st, you know, 365 days. But what happens if I want to leave in April before that? Or what happens if I get a new job or I transfer schools? So these are all things that you need to be looking for. We can direct you to legal counsel if you would like that, to have them help review it. But it's just kind of understanding that right now the leases and the academic year don't match up. So for timing, so if we're looking for a lease starting September 1st, I believe the academic year this year begins September 9th, somewhere around that year. So what companies are doing right now is they are posting available listings 30 to 60 days before the person is moving out. So right now it's June 29th. So people are signing leases for starting July 1st, maybe August 1st at this point too. But typically leases are signed within 30 days of when they're going to start. So it would start the 1st of the next month. So as you're kind of looking for places within that time range for starting September 1st, it would be good to start your search in July to see what's available, and then start actively contacting people that first day of August in order to kind of have like the first go at it or the first look at these available units. Because again, they are going very fast, and that's something to consider. One other question we have here, will there be more openings later in July and August? Likely yes, because if a student signs the lease in anticipation of one school year, that lease is going to be ending the August of next year. So a lot of people move in the summer. You know, people aren't really moving in the winter here in Colorado because there's the possibility of there being 2 feet of snow on the ground. So we see the most people moving in spring and summer and fall, with most of the students doing that in the summertime. We do field here at the office a lot of questions about roommates. Right now, what we are doing in anticipation of our new platform launching is we are directing students. There is a public Facebook page, DU Subletting and Housing. This is not affiliated through the university, but a lot of students do find success finding roommates on this website. So they would send private messages, be aware that this is not a secure forum, so don't send any personal information. Don't agree to anything over this website. Meet with the person, meet with the property management company. Make sure that it's okay that you are taking over the lease for someone else. We have stories of students who think that they signed on to a legit lease with another roommate, only to find out that this roommate never told the landlord about this. So because it is two people who don't know each other, but they're both DU students and want an affordable place to live, they enter into this agreement. So we just want to make sure that students are aware of this, that while this is a good resource and we are working on our own platform, a secure platform for transferring that information and finding other DU students, there are other types of resources and forums available in the meantime in order to find that. International and exchange students. This is a very relevant topic these days, as we have a lot of international and exchange students coming to the University of Denver. However, it is often difficult to find housing for international students, as they often have no credit in the United States or rental history, which is what landlords are looking for as they're reviewing leases. And so oftentimes students will need a guarantor, which means they'll need someone else to sign the lease for them, saying that if they can't pay, it would become on the other person too, the guarantor of that contract. So we kind of work with international students on a case-by-case basis as they call and talk to them, because each one is different, depending on, do they have a sponsorship from their government, or are they a private citizen paying to come here on their own. We have many different types of scenarios like that. So if you are an international student and you're listening to this webinar, you can contact me directly and we can talk about options of where to live. For non-international students as well, or parents, at the end of this, I'll have my contact information on there, and you can call me, send me an email. My job here is to talk to students and parents and kind of explain what we're doing now. This webinar that I'm giving right now is pretty similar to the types of conversations that I have with students. Just kind of going over things like, where do you want to live? How much is it going to cost to live there? How are you going to get to campus or your job? Do you have roommates? Do you want to live with roommates? Do you have pets? Do you want pets in the future? So where we're at right now is it is difficult for international students and exchange students to find housing here, because of the heavy focus on the American system of verifying the background of someone. So kind of to wrap it up a little bit, we just had some other questions that didn't really fall into necessarily any of the other categories. Short-term leases, that would be considered a sublet. Most landlords, most property management companies don't want to have a 3 or 4 month lease, because then after that time period, they're just going to need to do the same thing over again. So they're very much leaning towards the 1 year leases at this point. So if you did need that short-term housing, there is also Airbnb, VRBO. We have heard of students doing that, but for the most part, they're taking over the leases of other students. This question, are there different qualifications that need to be met if you're planning on using student loans to pay rent? The answer to that is no. Landlords don't really care where the funds are coming from, as long as you pay rent on the first of every month. The best options for students, this is a pretty broad question, but I think the best option comes on an individual basis of understanding what are my expectations and what do I need from a place and how can I find that. Kind of the last question we have here, do you have any apartments, studio or one bedroom near the university with pricing under $1,000, including fully furnished? The answer to that is likely no. There are furniture rental companies that we work with and that we have relationships with for students. If you're coming from out of town or out of the country and you need furniture, then you can rent that for the year if you don't want to buy it. But typically apartments around the university and in the Denver metro area as a whole are not coming furnished. So that's kind of all we have today. Here's the contact information. So my name is John Ganzer. I'm the off-campus housing fellow for this academic year. This is my contact information. I'm located in Nagel 128, which is right on the corner of High Street and Warren Street. So you can always stop by and see me in my office if you want to talk. If you're here, you can set up an appointment, drop in, whatever would be easiest. Or you can use this email address here to send me an email. And we also have our main housing desk that can take incoming calls and direct them to me if necessary. And they are just down the hall from me in Nagel 136. Linda, do we have any other questions on there that we'd like to get to? We've got a little bit more time here. No, we're good. Okay. So thank you all for your time today. Thank you for logging in and watching the webinar. We will be posting clips of this up on the website. And in the meantime, have a good day, and please call us here at the Housing and Residential Education Office if you have any questions. Thank you.